Life Literature. Today I'm going to handle the GCE O-Level English Literature paper as I have done earlier with you, and this time it will be the section B part of the first paper. In my earlier video clip, I have discussed how to handle the section A part of the first paper with 7 important tips. I hope that you have watched it. If not, I invite you to watch it as well. So today's session is based specifically on the section B part. I know that you are well thorough with this section by now. This section tests your ability and familiarization on the novel that you have studied. So in our syllabus for the GCE O-Level English Literature, there are 3 novels specifically mentioned for you to study. Those 3 novels are, the first one, Bringing Tony Home by Tissa Besekara, a Sri Lankan novel, and another one, Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain, that is an English novel, and thirdly, an Indian novel is there for you, that is Vendor of Sweets by R.K. Narayan. So you are not to study all these 3 novels, I know. You are to study only one of these novels, and you have to be well thorough and familiar with this novel in order to answer the questions based on the novel. So section B part of the first paper analyze and examines your knowledge on the particular novel you have studied. And this question carries 10 marks. So that is quite important, because 10 marks for the paper means that this is an essential part that you have to tackle well to get an A pass for the English literature. So these 10 marks are based on 4 different testing skills. Now let's see what these testing skills are. Testing skill number 1 is identification. You'll have to identify the things. I'll discuss them with you later. For that you get 2 marks. Skill number 2 is comprehension. For that you get 2 marks again. Skill number 3, application. Once again 2 marks. And the 4th skill tested is critical evaluation and the responses you are capable of. For that, of course, you get 4 marks. So that is the allocation of marks for the entire question. So altogether you get 10 marks. Quite important. Keep that in your mind. Now I'm going to discuss with you the question more deeply. In your question paper, this question appears in this manner. Answer questions in either A, B or C. That's how the question appears in the paper. These 2 words are quite important. Either or. That means you have a choice here. Why do you have a choice here? Because you have studied only one novel thoroughly, and the paper consists with questions based on the 3 novels set for studying. So the first thing that you have to do is to identify the particular novel that you have done. That is really important, because here sometimes we have seen how candidates go wrong in their identification. They misidentify another paragraph thinking that that had been the novel that they had studied. So this is vital, this is extremely important. Identify the relevant novel that you have studied. So I'm going to discuss with you the structure of the question now, so that you will be thorough with what are you tested of. Now I have mentioned you earlier the first skill, that is the identifying skill. So in this part, you are expected to identify and mention which part of the novel is being given in this particular extract. And not only the part of the novel, you have to find out the context. That means the situation given in the novel. For that, you have to be extremely familiar with all the parts of the novel. And sometimes you may be asked to identify the characters involved in this part as well. So that is the first, that is the main thing focused in the first question. And in the second question, you are tested for comprehension. The skill tested is for comprehension. So comprehension means understanding, whether you can read this particular extract given and whether you can understand what is being expressed in that part. That is what you are tested of. Sometimes in this question, you can find the answer in the given extract itself, because the question is based on one of the things that appears inside the extract itself. The third question tests your application. Application means how you can apply these things to your real life. So here the word power it is specially focused the word power, how much you have gained the vocabulary, how much you have understood, especially the literal meaning of the words. That means the exact word meanings of the word. So there you are tested under A and B. Once again, sub questions. You are given two words or phrases. So you will have to express the meanings of these two words or phrases in your own words. So that is the third part. The fourth question, I told you, test the skills of critical evaluation and response. Here, as responses, sometimes you may be asked to express your personal responses about the particular extract given. Or sometimes you may be asked to analyze that given passage critically. Maybe of a certain character trait, maybe of the devices the poet has used, maybe of the language the writer has used. So these things are there. So that comes under critical evaluation. For this, I think that you have noticed for this part, the mark allocation is more weighty. You get 4 marks for this section. That means you will have to write about 50 words for this question. Otherwise, you won't be able to score 4 marks for this. So that is the study of the question, how it appears. Now is the most focal thing of this video. I have come to that stage. So let's get going. I'm going to express the best way to handle this question. The best way to handle this question to secure the 10 marks allocated for this question. So let's get going. The first thing is, as I have mentioned earlier, identifying the extract of the novel that you have studied. So don't go wrong, don't misidentify, select the one you have studied. That should be your number 1 effort. So after identifying, what you have to do is, you have to read the extract slowly without trying to answer. Just try to understand what is being given in that particular extract. Try to remember the contextual reference of that particular extract. That means how that extract connects to the other parts of the story, the entire story. That is the first thing you have to do after identifying. Then the next step is, without reading the questions, you won't be aware of what you are being tested at. So for that, you have to go through the questions. Quickly go through the questions. What are you questioned of? What are the questions asked from you? So read the questions from the first one to the last one. Sometimes the questions themselves may clarify what's been given in the extract. That's a trick that you have to keep in your mind. Right. Then the third one is you have to read this extract again. This is the second reading that you have to do. Read the extract again, because sometimes when we read for the first time, on some things we don't focus our attention. We just avoid those things and we go on reading with the anxiety and exam stress and all these things surrounding you. So sometimes you may miss points. So to avoid that, you have to read the extract again, and this time you have to search in your mind the answers for the questions as well, because now you have already read the set of questions. So that is the second reading of the extract. Now after reading for the second time, now only you can start answering. Don't attempt to answer before the second reading. So once you read for the third time, now you can answer. While writing answers, you can read the extract again and again. So remember, this is your third reading. So here you are writing the answers as well while reading. Now the next step is, now imagine that you have finished answering. Now you can't stop here. The process still continues. So here you have to check your answers. Read the question and read what you have written. Read question number 2 and read what you have written. If there are some mismatches, attempt once again. If the time is running, you can circle the question and keep it aside. You have to always keep the factor about time in your mind as well. So that is checking. And so this is what you can practice while writing the examination. And you have to remember, you need constant practice on this. You can't do this then and there at the examination. You have to study the novel and take questions on section B, keep the time and start answering following the procedure that I have explained. So constant practice is a must. Take the advice of a teacher, guidance of a teacher, let your teacher correct your answer, it's better. If not, find out a marking scheme and try to find out whether your answers are correct. So the most important thing is, I'm mentioning it finally, you can only spend not more than 10 to 15 minutes on this question, because on section A part we have spent about 40 to 45 minutes, can you remember? And now we are left with only 10 to 15 minutes. So don't exceed this 1 hour time allocation for the first paper. It's better if you can save about 5 minutes from the first hour so that you can approach the second paper, essay type questions with much confidence. So 10 minutes is the time allocation for this question. Okay, so that's the best way that you can handle this. Now I thought of giving you 2 examples from 2 novels. The first novel I have selected is Bringing Tony Home by Jayasingha. So here's the question. And I'm directly moving on to the sub-questions given under this extract. First question. What is the situation? Where does it take place? 2 marks for this. First we'll take what is the situation. So what is the situation actually? This is the situation where the reunion with the dog has occurred when little Tissa had visited Depanama to collect the new ration books. So that was his first visit back to Depanama. And here, of course, he was remembering how he first met Tony. So these are the valuable information to form your answer. So what should be the exact answer? The exact answer should be something like this. This situation reveals the reunion with the dog when returning to Depanama to collect the new ration books. Here, the narrator is remembering their first meeting. So that should be something like that should be the answer for the first question. Second question of the same one, second part of the same question. Where does it take place? At the entrance to Mrs. Jayasingha's land or near the fence of the Mrs. Jayasingha's land. Second question. Why was Tony excited? What should be the question? That's very clear, easy. Because Tony met its master after an absence of 4 days. So here you have to be specific with the information you give. It's better to include after the absence of 4 days because then the markers will get to know that you are quite thorough with the novel without rather than stopping at after an absence. So if you can specifically mention the number of days or the time, it's better for you. You will grab marks by doing so. So the third question, explain the following words. And you are given 2 words there. First word is delicately. So think of the meaning not separately, not taken alone as a word. You have to find out the meaning in context. What do you mean by meaning in context? As the word appears in the paragraph. You can't take the word alone separately. You have to keep the word inside the extract and find out how that word acts within that line. That is the context meaning. So here, can you remember this delicately word comes with the action of Mrs. Jayasingha. It is said crashing through Mrs. Jayasingha with the custard pudding in the dessert cup held delicately in one hand. So here Mrs. Jayasingha was holding the dessert cup delicately in one hand. So your word of explanation should match this line. So how did Mrs. Jayasingha hold the dessert cup? Delicately. So what are the words that you can use? Similar words. Carefully, skillfully, lightly, cautiously. So those are the possible answers. The answers you produce should match the context which the word appears in the extract. The second word is suspended. So now hunt for the word in the extract. Where do you get that word in the extract? Here it says, the dessert spoon suspended somewhere between my mouth and her ample bosom. So the dessert spoon suspended somewhere. So what has happened to the dessert spoon? It is suspended. So what should be the answers, possible answers? The dessert spoon hung loosely, dessert spoon held down, and also I believe you can write dessert spoon stopped somewhere between my mouth and the ample bosom of Mrs. Jayasingha. So possible answers are hung loosely, held down, stopped. So something like that. Always check whether your meaning matches with the word which appears in the extract. Next question, question number 4. What does this passage reveal about the relationship between Tony and the narrator? So here, of course, you have to write something more about 50 words. So I think it is better when you discuss about the relationship between Tony and the narrator, you can't write all the things that are found inside the whole novel. You have to focus your attention only to the given extract. You have to derive points from the given extract only. So remember that. This is one place where candidates go wrong. They refer to the entire novel. Of course, by doing so, you won't score marks. So focus your attention to the given part only. So in this part, of course, we see how the narrator remembers the memory of Tony, how he had met Tony for the first time with fondness and sadness. Fondness accompanied with sadness, because at this point he was looking at Mrs. Jayasingha's land and remembering what had happened there some time back. So this fondness and this sadness displayed in the tone of the narrator shows how fond he is on Tony. The love, the caring and the affectionate relationship he has with the dog is seen through that. So you'll have to argue on that. And the other thing is, Tony displays quite a warm welcome on the narrator when Tony sets his eyes on narrator for the first time. So that warm welcome is very effectively mentioned here as the puppy comes crashing through Mrs. Jayasingha. The puppy comes crashing through, barking that stentorian bark. So you have to focus your attention on these 2 points in the extract. Narrator waiting at the fence of Mrs. Jayasingha's land and remembering the past, and Tony as a little puppy, first time encountering the narrator, coming crashing through Mrs. Jayasingha with a aristocratic stentorian bark. With these 2 points, you have to emphasize on the qualities of the relationship. What are the qualities of the relationship? Loving and caring, affectionate, intimate, close, and also genuine. So that's how you'll have to keep the answer for the 4th part of the question. Right. So we move on to another example taken from another novel, that is Vendor of Sweets by R.K. Narayan. So this is the extract. Go through the extract and I'll be forwarding the questions. Question number 1. What is the situation? When does it take place? So by now you may have noticed similar types of questions appear. So what is the situation of this novel? Given here, extracted here, Jagan starts getting letters from Mali. The second part of the question, when does it take place? After Mali has gone to America. There is another possible answer, after Jagan had had a discussion with cousin about the letters sent by Mali. So 2 probable answers. You can write whatever comes to your mind. Second question, why couldn't Jagan bind letters into a neat volume? Here you see the fact that I have mentioned in my discussion. Here the comprehension question is based directly on the given extract. So the answer is directly found inside the extract as well. So why couldn't Jagan bind the letters into a neat volume? What's the reason? Because Mali didn't leave a sufficient space for a margin when writing letters. The answer is direct, can be directly obtained from the extract. Third question, explain the following expressions. Number 1, epistles. Epistles means important letters. And the second one, in speedy execution. Speedy execution means quick performance or you can say do as quickly as possible. So remember, you have to match these meanings that you write with the lines appear uh, to match the contextual meaning of the extract. Check whether what you have written matches the idea of the word given in the extract by inserting what you have written instead of that word given. So remember to check that. Then the fourth question, what aspects of Jagan's character are revealed by the passage? So here you have to think of the characteristics of Jagan. So once you see this, don't go on writing all the characteristics that you have learned at the end of the novel on the character of Jagan, because all these characteristics do not apply to this selected extract. So you are to write only the relevant characteristics which are found in this given extract. So I have found some characteristics here. Number 1, love and affection for Mali. It is clearly seen in this passage, extracted passage. So what is the point that you can use to prove this quality of Jagan? Here, Jagan wanted to bind the letters into a neat volume. He had filed the letters and it is not enough for him. So he wants to bind the letters into a neat volume. That shows how much he loves his son. In the absence of his son, he wants to keep the letters neatly filed in a big volume printed. So that shows his affection. Another quality, he seems to be quite showing off and boastful. Isn't that so? Showing off and boastfulness. So for examples, to prove this point, at one time he says he put the letters inside his jibba to take to the boutique with himself so that he can read them to all. Especially the cousin will be victimized, isn't that so? Because cousin is the silent listener. So he wanted to read all the letters of Mali to everyone. So that is the boastfulness he has. And at another time he says he was so sure that Nataraj, the printer, would have realized its importance and he would print this as quickly as possible. So that shows he wants to show off and he is quite boastful. So those are the points. Another characteristics, double standards towards the spiritual life. We find Jagan displaying double standards towards his spiritual life. So although he sets his whole attention on the spiritualistic Gandhian principles of life, sometimes he veer away from these principles. So that is quite clearly seen here at one place in the extract. That is, the extract says, his readings of Bhagavad Gita was replaced by the blue airmail letters. So how can one replace the Bhagavad Gita, the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, with some common letters written to you by one of your loved ones? The two things are totally different, so you can't replace these things. That shows his dubious spiritualistic aspects of Gandhian principles of life. So we have got proof to prove the characteristics that we have selected. Other than that, you can say pretentious quality and hypocritical quality as well. So mine, if you give one characteristic, you have to prove it with a point taken from the extract. So that's the second example I have discussed with you. I hope now this would be enough for you to understand section B. Try this, practice this, select some questions from various sources and answer these things following the steps. So thank you for watching. We'll meet in another video.